Lofree made an elegant and unique low-profile mechanical keyboard in the Flow, which was one of my top low-profile keyboards of 2023. But one thing it didn't do was define a new segment of keyboard. It was, after all, a 75% low-profile keyboard with similar dimensions and similar switch travel to other low-profile mechanical keyboards on the market. But that's changing with Lofree's next low-profile keyboard, the Edge. Launching in April 2024, the Lofree Edge brings some new materials and reduced travel for an ultra-thin keyboard that bridges the gap between your laptop keyboard and other low-profile mechanicals. Let's take a look at the Edge and see if Lofree has another winner. Before we dive in, I want to mention that Lofree sent me the Edge in exchange for an honest review. I was not paid to make this video, and Lofree has no input on my review. I will have an affiliate link in the description for you if you're interested in picking up the Edge and you'd like to support this channel. Before we get into any details, I just want to point out I am posting this video a day before the Kickstarter campaign goes live, so I will have a link to the Kickstarter campaign in the description while it's on Kickstarter, and then if it eventually is just available through Lofree's site or other stores, I will update the links that are in the description. So, as you can immediately tell by looking at it, the Edge here is quite different from its relative, the Flow. The Lofree Flow is an elegant keyboard that has a traditional design and premium materials that look very at home next to your computer. Meanwhile, the Edge is futuristic looking by comparison. It's ultra thin, it's got that carbon fiber look to the top, it's got the metal back to the bottom of the case, and it's got a cutout grill. I mean, all these things are just asking for your attention. First, let's start by covering the features and specs of the Edge, and then we'll get into the pros and cons. The Lofree Edge is a 75% low-profile keyboard with an ANSI layout and pre-programmed layouts for Mac and Windows. The construction includes magnesium alloy and carbon fiber, and the dimensions are 317.5 by 155 millimeters with a height of 9 millimeters in the front and 14 millimeters in the back, including keycaps, with the feet in the flat position. The fold-out feet provide one additional typing angle that raises the back to a height of 21 millimeters. The weight of the Edge is 485 grams, or just over 1 pound. Connectivity includes USB-C wired with 1000 Hz polling rate and 3 Bluetooth connections. The battery capacity is 2000 mAh, and Lofree has not provided an estimated use time as of the time of recording. However, this is the same battery capacity of the Lofree Flow. The switches are not hot swappable, and at the time of recording, I'm aware of just one switch option, which is the kailh low-profile Palm 2.0 linear, which have a shorter travel distance of 2.4 millimeters, reduced from the 2.8 millimeters of travel in the switches that come in the Lofree Flow. The PCB is a low-profile gasket mount style like the Lofree Flow, but with even less room for travel in this very slim case. The keycaps are low-profile PBT and are not shine-through. The backlighting is white only with a few brightness levels controlled via key command. The Edge is customizable with Lofree configurator software available on Windows only at the time of release and a target of December 2024 for a Mac version. Customization includes remapping, adding macros, and controlling the backlight. The price of the Lofree Edge will be $169 on Kickstarter, with additional discounts possible depending on how early you are in the Kickstarter campaign. All right, now let's talk about some pros and cons for the Lofree Edge here, and then I also want to talk about the experience relative to what maybe you're coming from in terms of the keyboard you currently use. Starting with some pros, we definitely have a premium feel here to the build, especially the case bottom, which Lofree states is magnesium alloy, and it's got a very premium feel. I mean, this is just really nice. The cutout grill is an interesting kind of accent here, but it feels very premium, feels very sturdy and solid. And the top as well also has a premium feel to it. It just overall, it feels like a higher end type of device. This was a pre-production model that Lofree sent me before the Kickstarter launch, but even so, the assembly on it, I mean, it's perfect. I haven't found a single, mark anywhere or, something that wasn't assembled perfectly. Overall, like the assembly and the build quality, very nice. I also like that it has a 1000 hertz polling rate on the wired connection. It's always good to have a high polling rate because if you do anything like a little bit of gaming or something like that where you want that faster response, that lower latency, you're gonna have that higher polling rate. It's also good because the only other connection that it has is Bluetooth, which definitely does not have a very high polling rate. I always like to see that there is Windows and Mac support for your modifier key layouts. You've got sub-legends here for both Windows and Mac. It's not a physical switch on the keyboard. There is a key command for swapping between Windows mode and Mac mode. And I also like that Lofree is releasing configurator software. Now, this is in the early stages. I also got sort of a copy of it before it's available. It is only available for Windows, so we'll talk about the con side of that in just a moment. But if you have Windows, then you can download the Lofree configurator and you can do basic remapping, you can add macros, you can control the backlighting. So it does have some of those features. That has not been available for the Lofree Flow, so I do appreciate that they're coming out with that with the Edge. Let's talk about the sound profile. In general, it sounds a little bit similar to the Lofree Flow. It's a little bit quieter, I think. These are switches that are related to the switches in the Lofree Flow. They're not the same. They're a new generation, a new model of switch, but they're still made by kailh and they're still palm switches and they're linear. Overall, the sound is similar to the Lofree Flow, but a little bit different, maybe a little on the quieter side. There's definitely no unwanted sounds here. There's no rattling sounds from any stabilizers. There's just nothing bad sounding here. So if you liked the sound of the Flow, you'll probably like the sound of the Edge. And another pro here is the adjustable feet. So the Lofree Flow did not have any adjustable feet. There is one extra typing position that you get with the Edge here with these fold out feet. So you get a flat position, which is very, very flat. You see how thin the Edge is, but you also can fold these out so you get a little bit of an incline there. So I appreciate having that as well. All right, I have probably more than usual in what I call the neutral category or the in-between category, which are things that for me fall in between pros and cons for maybe a couple different reasons. But most of the time, these sort of neutral things are very subjective and some people will say are a pro and some people will say are a con. So I just kind of say they fall in between. First up, let's talk about this super thin, low profile here and kind of what comes along with it. Your perception of this being good or bad or kind of indifferent really depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from only using a laptop keyboard or only using a membrane keyboard, this is not as thin as those. It's actually not that much thicker, but it's gonna have a more tactile feel. And by tactile, I'm not talking about the switches. I'm talking about the sensory perception. It's going to feel like there's more going on here. However, if you're coming from the perspective of a mechanical keyboard enthusiast or just somebody who has used mechanical keyboards, either high profile or even other low profile mechanical keyboards, then this is going to feel like a step down in terms of the thickness and the travel and the experience. It's gonna feel more like one of those membrane ultra thin keyboards and less like a mechanical keyboard. So you can see why I can't really classify this as a pro or a con for all of you in general, because it really depends on your perspective. If you're looking for something just a little more travel, a little bit more of that tactile experience versus a membrane keyboard, a laptop keyboard, this might be that perfect baby step up. Next in this kind of in-between category, we have the design. This is another thing that this design is likely to be a little more polarizing than the Lofree Flow. There's nothing particularly wild, but not everybody wants this carbon fiber look to the top of their keyboard. So the way I interpret the design is it's actually less neutral and more like you either really like it or you really don't like it. All right, two more things in this neutral category, and one is the battery life. And this one is here not because it's subjective, but because I don't know what the expected battery life is. I haven't seen it in the available specs for the Edge yet. I do know it's a 2000 milliamp hour battery capacity, but I have not seen a stated expected use time. I used it for a week with both my personal laptop and my work laptop. So I haven't been disappointed with the battery life, but I can't tell you what the total estimated use time is with the lighting on or the lighting off. That's why I can't really say pro or con yet. All right, the last thing in the neutral category is that the switches are not hot swappable. The fact that they're not hot swappable on the Edge, whereas they were on the Flow, there's trade-offs here, obviously. However, on the Flow, one important thing to keep in mind, they offered 3 different switch types that you could buy, and you can buy them separately for the Flow. You have linear, you have tactile, and then you have clicky. You can buy them separately and swap them out. Now with the Edge, as far as I can tell, there is only one switch option. It is the low-profile Palm 2.0 switches from kailh, and they are linear. I don't believe there's going to be an option for a tactile switch or a clicky switch. So having the ability to hot swap them after you buy it is a little bit less critical in terms of that choice, like wanting to change them out, because I don't think you're going to have that option anyway. Now, I personally prefer hot swappable switches in general, just because I want to be able to change the switches or replace a switch if one sort of dies on me and stops working. But some people just won't care about that, so that's why I left it in the neutral category, especially considering there's only one switch option to begin with. All right, now let's talk about some cons for the Edge. First of all, let's go back to the configurator software. For Mac users, the estimated timing for when that'll be available on Mac OS is not until December 2024, and that's an estimate at this point. It could come earlier, it could come later, so that's a while to wait if you buy the Edge now and then you're hoping to be able to do some remapping or add macros to it. So that would be a con for Mac users. All right, now the biggest con, I think, for me is some odd choices I think that Lofree made with the execution and design around the backlighting and the keycaps that they went with here on the Edge. So it's kind of how those things work together or don't work together that I think make this into sort of a con or downside with the Edge. Let's talk about the keycaps. From a material standpoint and a feel standpoint, they're fine. I don't have any major complaints about them. They are PBT. They feel fine. They have a little bit of that PBT texture. I don't have any major complaints. It really has to do with low light situations and the legends that they chose and the lack of shine through. Normally, I don't say that not having shine through keycaps is a con. I would kind of put it more in the neutral category, but here it's the choices they made that make me call this a con or downside. If you're using the Edge in low light with its all black design, these legends are very hard to see because they are not bright white. They're kind of like a gray color, and they are super thin. The font of the legends is very thin. It's not bold at all. So because they're not shine through, even turning on the backlight really doesn't help you see those legends at all. And the last thing I'll mention about the backlighting, I don't know if this is inherent to this backlighting or if it's just because there is so much black to absorb the light here, but the backlighting doesn't get very bright at all. Even on the highest setting, it's not very bright. And like I mentioned, it doesn't help with the legends anyway. All right, another smaller con that I noticed here is the Bluetooth wake up time with my computers, with both my Windows and my Mac computer connected over Bluetooth. The wake up time of the computer, there's a little bit of a lag. And by wake up time, what I mean is you stop using the computer, you walk away for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you come back and your monitor has gone to sleep, you hit a key, and the blue light will blink to indicate it's reconnecting. You can count 1, 2, 3, and then your monitor wakes up. And that's not a big deal. It's not a deal breaker to me, but it is a little bit annoying. So at the end of the day, do I recommend it? Well, it kind of depends on where you fall in that spectrum of what you're looking for that we just talked about. So maybe this is like a Goldilocks keyboard here, where if membrane is too thin and not enough of a tactile experience for you, but mechanical, even low profile mechanical, is a little too much for you, maybe the Edge is exactly what you're looking for. The very last thing to talk about here is the price. And so because it's launching on Kickstarter, there are discounts depending on when you back the project, so you get a lower price if you're earlier. The Kickstarter price is $169 according to what was shared with me, but it will be lower than that depending on when you back the project. Now, $169 is the same price as the Lofree Flow's regular retail price. I do think that the build quality and the materials are on par with the price in the $150 to $160 range. If the regular retail price goes above $169, that might be a little bit of a stretch in my opinion. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know what you think of the Lofree Edge. Let me know if you do back the Kickstarter project, and once you get it, let me know how you're liking it. Don't forget to subscribe to the Semi-Pro Tech and Gear channel, and while you're here, why don't you check out one of these other reviews? I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Thanks everybody. See you next time.